The thing looked to have the consistency of a cratered meatball. No, not cratered. The holes about the huge orb's face seemed to channel all the way to its center, and from them came the clicking mess of limbs. The massive ball came to rest perhaps 10 yards from our back door, spinning awkward and slow. We looked on in awe at the onyx globe. "What is it?" said Courtney, reloading the gun and stepping away from the door. "Fuck if I know." "What are those things coming from it?" asked Jacob. "Looks like segmented legs, like a bug," I said, unsure if the description could do them justice, for they each moved independently of one another as the pointed ends of the stick limbs scraped against the surface of its body. They reached out in all directions too, contracting and extending and feeling the black air. Just then, the childish cries of Frank in the living room could be heard. I darted to him in a hurry, dropping my half-drank beer. As I rounded the corner, I saw him sitting straight up from the couch as though he'd had a metal rod shoved down his back. His hands clung to his face, fingers clambering to remove the gauze we'd placed there. "I can't see!" he screamed. "Why can't I see?" I shivered at these words, feeling the skin across my neck contract at the realization he didn't understand what happened to him. I rushed to his side, grabbing his arms and holding them down so that he could not claw at his bandages. "Shh," I attempted to calm him. "Shh, it's okay, Frank. It is not okay, Buckaroo. You're okay. Just breathe, buddy. Calm down." He spazzed against me, twisting all around while trying to place his foot against my chest to push me away. "Uncle Derek?" His head craned in all directions. "Is that you?" He began to cry, and the blood began to ooze from the bottom of the gauze. "Why can't I see?" he sobbed. "Please, get this thing off my eyes." I choked. "It's okay, bud." "Where am I? I'm so cold. I don't see anything around me. Why can't I see anything?" Right then, I knew I'd reached my breaking point. And just as I opened my mouth to tell him he had no eyes, and that's why he couldn't see, he stiffly flopped back onto the couch like a plank of wood, gone from the words falling from my mouth. I shook the boy and he didn't respond. Looking over my shoulder, I saw Jacob and Courtney standing in the threshold. "Come here," she said. "You need to see this." I lifted little Frank in both arms and marched to the kitchen, placing him upright against the fridge. "I'm so sorry. I won't let you out of my sight." I pivoted to look out the door and saw the horror there, with its many legs closer, so that it seemed at any moment one of its pointed appendages could reach out and snatch the roof off the house. The radio played another pop hit from Days Gone By. I reached over and flicked the knob off. "What do you want?" I whispered. "What are you doing?" asked Courtney, stepping in beside me to grab my hand. Jacob stood by me opposite side, both hands clasped around the hammer. "I'm talking to it," I said. "Why?" she asked. "Do you think it can understand us?" "I don't know." I squeezed her slender fingers. "Yeah," said Jake. "What do you want?" The orb stopped its spinning. I am unsure how to describe the horror's way of communication, for it had no face and therefore no mouth. but we all heard its resounding voice all the same. It shook the world around us and threatened to divide the house down its very middle as it spoke. "I am Worm," exclaimed the legged floating globe. "You have been chosen to look on me, for I am a jealous god." Steve let out a guttural moan, cramming himself under Frank's limp arm. "I am all there is. I am all there ever will be. I am what has always been." Why us? My throat was dry. It ignored this. "Come to me, children. Look on my catastrophe. Look upon my works and lose yourself in the wonder that is me." Then there was light, and it was bad. Beams of white light poured from the openings in the surface of Worm, illuminating all there was. We were not suspended in an open void of nothingness, as previously suspected, but we were risen in a massive chamber of colossal proportions. Peeking over the edge of the doorway, I saw that the massive tentacles reaching up to support the weight of the house was not merely a fever dream, but a godforsaken reality. The tentacles down there spawned forth from pustules with dimpled centers, and they glistened in the blinding light with sickening clarity. "I am Worm," said the globe. "Look on my works and tremble." We did. The chamber itself had the consistency of the interior of a creature. Exposed ribbing lined the chambers, and when I dared look at the ceiling, I could see where the translucent bulges of pink skin met at a swollen vertebrae line. The light of Worm exposed the orb for what it was, and I reeled upon seeing its true form. I cannot describe it here, because no human words could ever do the thing justice. I did not look on my family while I studied the chamber, as I could not peel my eyes from the scenery. The Watchers danced in the aerial circle around the house in cloaks like trim, frail humanoids with angular, hairless features. The Watcher's eyes were not that of any human I'd seen before, or since, because they were so biologically improbable. The eyes were not organic material, but huge light bulbs with fire-hot yellow filaments pushed into what were otherwise empty sockets. I heard Jacob retch beside me. Courtney's grip on my hand clenched ever more, but I couldn't feel the pain emanating there. This is hell," said my wife. "No," said Worm. "This is I. This is me." That's when Frank wriggled from his sick slumber and joined the rest of us. Again, the poor boy felt around blindly, wildly, hoping to cling onto anything as a guidepost. Courtney went to the boy, stroking his hair and grabbing his hand to comfort him. But he was having none of it, spitting and swinging his tiny fists in a flurry that met with her chest and face. She recoiled. Steve had long since moved out of the striking distance of the boy and taken refuge underneath the kitchen table. This is madness. not madness," said Worm, somehow reading my thoughts. "It is merely beyond your comprehension. The boy, you call him Little Frank. He is suitable." "Don't you dare," I said. Worm did not pay any mind to this. Instead, Frank began reeling in pain, stretching his neck to its terminus with veins and muscles standing out against his pale flesh. Frank's head lolled back, and fire-hot yellow light fired from his socket so violently it came through the gauze. I staggered, grabbing onto the frame of the door, if only not to drop onto the floor, or worse yet, tumble to my doom far below. "Help!" screamed Frank. "Please help!" My stomach churned as his pleas vibrated in my ear canal. Frank rose off the ground, levitating to the ceiling, bumping his head and swinging through the air like a rag doll. His small frame, limp, swung through the air with needless legs and arms. Torso is frozen straight. Jacob grabbed at his little brother's legs, yanking at his shoes, trying to bring him back to the floor. "No!" moaned Jake, his slanted eyes and dribbling lips forever burned in my memory. The shoe in his hand slipped from Frank's foot and plopped to the floor. I too snatched the floating little boy, grabbing onto him with pinching fingers as he passed through the doorway, almost pulling me along with him. I let him go, and his shirt collar popped from my hand. Everything in the chamber went black once more, and the only thing that could be seen was the eyes of the watchers, spinning and floating out there like macabre guides in the dark black sea of the void. Worm grabbed hold of the frame of the house with the points of his onyx insect limbs and shoved himself away from us, floating into that infinite black space. The sheen of the globe's surface disappeared until there was only an outline in the void. Eventually, even that was gone. The formation of circling watchers had a new link in their chain, and I shut the door to ignore it. We were in a drowning silence. Jake had no qualms clinging to Courtney's gown after his brother's passage to Worm. "What now?" asked Jake, his voice delicate, small. I leaned against the wall near the back door and kicked off the baseboard, standing it with the rubber on my shoe. Pacing the kitchen, I hoped I could find something to say. Steve followed me with his eyes from beneath the table. I couldn't answer. I didn't want to answer, because I knew that anything I said would be wrong.
Chronicler here. We here at Creepy Spaghet would like to thank EdwardTheCrazyMan for allowing us to tell their story. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe to stay updated on these terrible tales, and make sure to check out the author in the links below. We would also like to give a huge thank you to one of our listeners, Carter K. in the St. Louis area. You have our gratitude for giving us your support. If you're interested in having your story narrated, be sure to reach out to our humble overseer, as he continues his journey to pull the darkest stories from the infinite depths of the internet. Until next time, fiends. And remember, we are darkness.